Hey Doug, this is going to be your 1966 Nishijin Pachinko video that I'm making for you here. This is the restored machine. Go ahead and get some close-ups of this here for you. I went ahead and shined up all these pins real nice for you. Get the original brass color back to those. I don't know if you can tell, I shined up all of these pockets here for you, as well as the tulip. Tulip actually wasn't working when you gave that to me, and I was able to get that going again. So that's working correctly now. I was able to shine up this middle piece a little bit. Not sure if you can tell here, there's a little bit of rust that I wasn't able to take care of. That was just from the rusty balls that have been tossed through the machine. And cleaned up as much as I possibly could here. But I think that it came out really nice. I'm trying to get this gimbal to cooperate here with me. You can see here that the ball tray cleaned up really nicely. It's got some of the original shine here on it, which I was kind of surprised by and definitely excited about. Very pretty. All the metal cleaned up really nice on this machine. The frame turned out really nice, I think. Got the original shine back. It's got a few spots here and there, but I mean, for a machine that's from 1966, I think it looks pretty sharp. So I'm going to go ahead and run some balls through it and then kind of explain the back side of it to you, and then we can go from there. So I'm going to go ahead and run some balls through it as promised, just to kind of show you that the center feature lights work as well as the repaired tulip. So go ahead and see what jackpots I can win here. So I figured while we had this window open here, we'd go ahead and show you the play field. I thought that this actually cleaned up tremendously well from what I started with. Like I said, this Pachinko balls that have the tarnish on them, like this one here, those will do a number on your play field. I have a couple of rarer machines that if I see just a tiny little bit of rust on the ball that I see go through it, I'll actually go back and try to find it so that I can pull it out of circulation. That way it doesn't affect my play fields. You shouldn't ever really need to get into the front face of this machine, but if you were ever to do like cleaning or if something got jammed up, what you would want to do is come back around here to the back side, and you'll see this little lever right here. And what you'll do is pull on that lever, and while you pull on it, you're going to want to pull on this frame here, and that will release the frame from the wooden frame. So let me kind of show you how to do that. This is kind of hard to do while holding a gimbal, but you can see this is the switch here. I've got my hand on the frame here, and as you're pulling up the lever in the back, you just pull out on the frame here. So another thing that you can see I spent a lot of time doing on this machine was cleaning up the back side of it. It does still look like there's a lot of rust and grime on it. However, those are just permanent tarnish spots on some of the pieces of metal back here. A lot of this is tin, and then a lot of it's just a bunch of different kinds of metal. So this is going to be your seesaw tray. So this is where a ball would enter. This is where a ball would enter if you got a jackpot. It goes into that red piece there, which should also always be tilted in the upward position, which it currently is right now, so that the ball can travel from these pockets that you see here, down the tubes, into the seesaw, and when that seesaw gets tilted in the down position, it actually triggers a mechanical reaction down here, which will pay out your seesaw of balls right here. So I'm going to try and show this the best that I can from the back side of the machine while I put balls into the front manually. But it's pretty basic mechanics. Now that it's working, you'll be able to kind of watch to see how it works for yourself. There's just lots of levers and little pivots and little joints and all sorts of stuff that work together to dump that Jackpot slide right here and let you have access to those balls on the front of the machine. One piece that I noticed that was pretty messed up was this this ball piece here. And basically the whole purpose of this piece right here is to calm these balls down. Sometimes they have a tendency to stack when they get into these little, see, just like that. They have a tendency to stack when they get into these little pathways here. And basically what this piece is meant to do is to kind of keep them from doing that. I've noticed on your machines, sometimes this piece will keep this ball slide from filling all the way up. But literally all you need to do is just kind of tap this or just move this little piece around a little bit, and that will free up the balls here to let them down into the slide. It's a very quick fix. Nothing big in particular that has to happen there. I can't put that back on with one hand. I'm gonna need two hands to put it back on. But basically, anything on the back side of this machine, if you have to force it or bend it, that is probably not something that you're going to want to do. The machines are very breakable. They're very delicate. So generally speaking, what I always tell people, good rule of thumb, if you have to bend anything or if you have to force anything, it's probably not happening correctly. So anyway, this is just kind of another view of the back of the machine and how I cleaned it up. I thought that this looked really nice after I cleaned it. This should be absolutely ready for the new balls that you put into it. So this will be a view of the balls being ejected down into your Jackpot chute. This is going to dump that little tray of balls that's in the middle of your screen. I'm just going to manually trigger Jackpot here. And you can see how that automatically fills up. One thing that I did have to make an adjustment on, I'm not sure if this was adjusted by you or the owner before you, but these two little pieces, these two little prongs here, were bent way too far up. So what would happen is, when this thing reloaded, it would just keep sending balls through to the front of the machine like you won them. So obviously we don't want that to happen, so I had to bend those back, as well as make a few other adjustments on this whole contraption here. But that is all fixed now. You shouldn't have any issues with that moving forward. And like I said, I've probably played it for a solid hour now, and I haven't had any issues with it. So another cool feature that these old 60s machines have are these little levers down here, and I'm going to try not to cast a shadow on it. You can kind of see that the balls are sitting on top of these levers, which are in the middle of your screen there. On the right hand side track, it looks like the balls are totally compressing that lever down, and on the left hand side it looks like they aren't. So when those levers pop up, what will happen is that will send a message to this spring contraption here that will actually pull this down to release more balls from your Jackpot tray, which will effectively fill up your tray here. If you don't already have enough balls dropping down from the exits or the dud balls that you've shot through the machine here. So this machine actually knows exactly when it needs to fill the hopper back up so that you can continue to keep playing. That's why they call it a recycling style machine, because what happens is all of your dud balls fall out of the back side of the machine here, but they go right into the feeder tray, which goes right to your Jackpot here. So what's nice about these is you don't have to continue to reload them. If you have kids, that's a lot better machine style to have. That way, you don't have kids putting their hands on the back of the machine. So this is actually a much more low maintenance machine to play on a daily basis, so you don't have to fill it up as often. So now I'm going to cover electric. Basically what we had here, basically when these machines came over from Japan, lots of electrical modifications were made. You know, for instance, this fuse box up here says something like 24 volts going into that fuse box, which I knew was not a correct amount of voltage. I just know this from experience, but essentially this is going to be running on 12 volts. I can actually pull the wall wart here for you to kind of show you exactly what kind of power it's getting. If I can focus this. So here you have 100 to 240 volts input, and the output is going to be 12 volts at 3 amps. So I think I have a 3 amp fuse in there, so that matches the amperage here on the wall wart. And then basically, so you've got the power coming in from the wall wart, so that cord runs up into the fuse box. One thing that I did have to do was just kind of wrap this wire around this contact here. There's some soldering that I needed to do in the back to jump a wire from one of these terminals over to this one. You're not seeing my finger, here we go, to this one. Unfortunately, you only had one screw, and those machine screws from Japan are extremely hard to find again, so I wasn't able to replace that one for you, but it works perfectly fine if you just leave that in the hole there. So what you'll do is just wrap the wire through it, get it through the hole there, and then just hook it around the edge. And then you've got your output here, which also operates this light. Your wires will come over. This branches off to the leaf switch for the, let's see, that is for the ball empty light up here. And then you come further down, and this is your Jackpot leaf switch, which is activated by your Seesaw right here. So when that falls forward, you can see that that presses those two contacts together and basically just operates these Jackpot lights in here. So this is kind of the inside assembly of the Jackpot lights, which are activated by that leaf switch right there in the middle of your screen. As I said, it looks like you're probably going to need to order some more lights for it, which are pretty easily accessible on eBay. I know that they sell lighting kits with like rubber grommets and a few light bulbs for your machine. I will have to do a little bit of research on that to make sure that you buy the right one. But I think most of those lighting kits that are 9 volts or 12 volts or 10 volts, however it's listed, those should treat you just fine. Obviously though, that black bulb is totally gone, so the only two that are working there are at the top. So all I ask is that when you take that out, just be careful putting it back in there. Like I said, this is all pretty delicate stuff, so you don't want to force anything. Just go ahead and pop that back in there, and then this little yellow thing, little cover comes over, and there's this little piece here that gets screwed back on clockwise, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey, and that will hold your Jackpot lights together there for you. So then I wanted to kind of explain this light to you here as well. So this light here, I actually didn't get very many responses about that light on the Pachinko website that I'm a part of. But here's kind of my thinking on it. The light that corresponds with that looks like it's right around the same area as this cool contraption right around here, which has to do with this little, let me show you, this little switch here on the front. That little switch there was actually used for backed up jackpots. So when I was running through the jackpots earlier, what you can see is one of those was backed up, didn't get into the Seesaw quite when it was supposed to have. So they actually go kind of into the machine here, which I thought was kind of interesting. I've never seen this before. But when you pull that switch down, what it does is it kicks that ball out. And as you can hear, it will release that ball into the Seesaw and then trigger the Jackpot here. It's also cool that you have this little window. Mine doesn't have that. But I'm thinking that wherever I didn't want to take this whole assembly apart. Like I said, there are lots of fragile pieces, and this is extremely old plastic, so I wouldn't recommend taking it apart either. But I'm guessing that these wires that disappear into the machine have got something to do with the balls being just kind of switched over to the side here, just to kind of let the players know that they had a jackpot that they needed to activate to get the balls that they had already won. So if I had to guess, that's probably what that light is for. That might work for you. My guess is if that's activated by another leaf switch, which most of these machines are, you would have to brush up those contacts with some fine sandpaper. But right now, I've actually got that light bulb out into your jackpot lights so that you have a little bit more light coming from that. This obviously doesn't need a light bulb. As long as these two contacts are together, you're going to complete the circuit, and your lights are going to work here. But I'm guessing that that's what this light was for at one point. But definitely possible to get balls backed up in here, and that was obviously a little piece of the machine that was thought out in '66, which is actually a pretty cool little feature, I think. So you might have also noticed this little solder joint that I added here when I was talking about this contraption. This was actually pretty bent up when I took a look at it and was not allowing a lot of things to happen here in your tray. So I went ahead and just put the little solder joint on there. That shouldn't go anywhere. The metal is bent back to the way that it should be in its original state. Even if this does pop off, you shouldn't have any issues unless this machine falls on its backside or is laid on its backside again. Other than that, you should be totally fine though. So I think that another little important thing to kind of show you here are these two little switches here. And basically what those are designed to do is release literally all the balls out of the jackpot assembly, which would carry everything from here all the way through down into your spring, through your tray, through your little slide here, all the way down through the machine and out into your bucket that you said you had. So what you would do is you would separate those two springs and those two little, I don't even know what you want to call these two little switches apart, and that would effectively dump all of the balls out of the machine.